Hey guys, it's Jimmy. Um, so 2 or 3 days ago, I got a paper I did for English back, and I decided, hell, I'll read it. We had to do a research paper on someone who has made an impact on society in the 20th century, who, kind of didn't get a lot of credit or not too many people know. So, I'm gonna read you my essay. It's kind of long, so, get yourself a soda and some popcorn and, listen. The man who made the Beatles. The Beatles are one of the most popular artists of all time. They have recorded over 300 songs and 54 albums. Hold on, I'm going to turn down the volume a little bit. The Beatles are one of the most popular artists of all time. They have recorded over 300 songs and 54 albums. With all their songs and albums, they have had only one producer, whom many people do not know too much about. His name is Sir George Martin. He is responsible for the success of so many musicians in many different musical genres. Martin is one of the most important music producers in history because he played a major part in making the biggest band in history, the Beatles, who they are. According to BeatlesBible.com, George Henry Martin was born on January 3rd, 1926 in Highbury, London, England. He attended many schools as a child and young adult, including St. Joseph's Elementary School, Bromley Grammar School, St. Ignatius College, and London's Guildhall School of Music and Drama. Martin had an interest in music since he was a child. As a child, his family owned a piano, and he convinced his parents to let him have lessons when he was 8. However, he only had 8 lessons because his mother and his teacher did not agree on many things. When he saw the BBC Symphony Orchestra perform when he was still in school, it piqued his interest in music even more. It also stated on BeatlesBible.com that during World War II he worked in the War Office as a clerk and a surveyor. From 1943 to 1947, he was a pilot and officer in the Fleet Air Arm of the Royal Navy. He used the money he made from the Army to enroll at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. While at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, he studied oboe, piano, and the music of various composers. BeatlesBible.com also states that on January 3rd, 1948, he married a woman named Sheena Chisholm, don't know how to pronounce that. From this marriage, he had 2 children, including actor Gregory Paul Martin. Unfortunately, their relationship was rocky, and they eventually divorced. In June of 1966, he married again. They also had 2 children. His son, Giles Martin, followed in his father's footsteps and became a producer. According to BeatlesBible.com, when Martin finished studying at the Guildhall School, he got a job working in the classical music department at the BBC. Following this, he worked as an assistant to Oscar Prius, EMI's Parlophone label's boss. In 1955, Oscar Prius retired and Martin became the head of the Parlophone label. During this time, he worked with many actors including Pete Sellers, Spike Mulligan, Dudley Moore, Stan Getz, Judy Garland, Tommy Steele, Cleo Lane, and many more. In 1962, an unsigned band called The Beatles, still with drummer Pete Best, was signed to the Parlophone EMI Records by Martin. A few months later, they found Ringo Starr to play drums. Martin went on to produce every Beatles recording from their first hit single, Love Me Do, to their final album before their 1970 breakup, Let It Be. The only exception to this is the post-production work on Let It Be. The Beatles were one of the earliest groups to experiment with twin-track overdubs. Martin helped them greatly with this recording. Typically, they would record the instrumental track, and when they would record the vocal track, and then they would record the vocal track on tape. This makes him one of the earliest producers to work with bands in trying this kind of experimentation, unlike other producers at the time. He also produced the soundtracks to Beatles-related movies, including A Hard Day's Night and 1978's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which included tracks from artists such as the Bee Gees, Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, and many others. It is safe to say that the Beatles were George Martin's most successful project. In 1965, Martin went on to start Air Studios, leaving EMI. During this time, he continued to work with the Beatles as a consultant for EMI. After the Beatles' breakup, Martin worked with many new artists, including Cheap Trick, UFO, and Gary Brooker from the band Procol Harum. He also worked with the band America on 7 albums, former Yardbirds guitarist Jeff Beck's best-selling album, and former Beatles Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney, including 2 of McCartney's #1 singles. Musicians such as Paul McCartney and the Rolling Stones have also used his studios. Martin has written 3 books: an autobiography entitled All You Need Is Ears, a book about making music, simply titled Making Music, and a book about the making of the Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, called Summer of Love, with a little help from my friends. His work has not gone unnoticed. He has received numerous awards and recognitions for his benefaction to the world of music. Sorry, I'm stumbling a lot. In 1988, Sir George Martin was given the title of Commander of the British Empire. He received an honorary degree of Master Arts from Salford University in England in 1992. When the Broadway version of The Who's Tommy hit the stage in 1993, Martin produced the Broadway soundtrack. This also gave Martin his 5th Grammy. Because of his great contributions to the music industry in 1996, he was knighted by the Queen of England. Martin produced his 30th and final single in 1997, which was Elton John's Candle in the Wind 97, the best-selling single in history recorded after the death of Princess Diana. His final project was a cover album of Beatles songs called In My Life. Although Martin is retired as a producer, he still plays his part in the music industry in the music world by helping different causes and companies. It is obvious that Martin has made an impact on the music industry both in the past, present, and most likely in the future. Martin has had such a... Oh, this is the real deep inspirational paragraph where I go on about how much the Beatles kick ass. Martin has had such a huge impact on music and society. The Beatles are one of the most influential bands of all time, and without Sir George Martin's help, the success of the Beatles probably would have never happened. The Beatles' music is still listened to and loved by so many people. The Beatles were at the height of their popularity after the death of John F. Kennedy. They showed there was a light at the end of the tunnel. When the Beatles started, conservative America thought they were corrupting America's youth, thus destroying society. However, the Beatles did the complete opposite. They gave kids a creative outlet and a love of music. They inspired kids to pick up guitars and start their own bands. Without George Martin, these kids would have never heard the Beatles, and there would be no rock and roll as we know it. George Martin made such a great benefaction to music and society by producing so many artists that inspired in so many different genres. He made a big enough contribution to music and the world to be knighted by the Queen of England. The Beatles' music is still popular in many forms and is still used and referenced to in movies such as Across the Universe and I Am Sam. The Beatles' music is still on the Billboard charts today. Their Love album is currently at number 42 and has been at that position for 104 weeks. Their music is still covered by many popular bands or average kids with an interest in music playing with their bands in garages. Without Martin, this would not be happening. George Martin has had such a great helping hand in the music industry and the world, his biggest success being the Beatles. Without him, the Beatles probably would not have become a household name like they are today. So that was my essay. I just thought maybe you'd like it. It's called The Man Who Made the Beatles. I did it for my English class. I got an A on it. So yeah, I guess that's it.